To the substance, Nicholas has put a very good position on the genesis, but I like to say, to just add the specific illustration to the genesis in that, for example, Minister of Defense was stuck with appeal because in the previous position, there had been appeal or no appeal. Sometimes the Court of Appeal will entertain appeal. At some point in the case of Ogwang, Lieutenant Ogwang, it turned around and said, no, you don't have power to appeal. And it was finally zeroed that the appellate procedure that was being exercised was arising from a regulation drawn by the Minister of Defense. And I think then Honorable Amamba was our very good old boy of Ontario School, of course. The minister then, through a regulation, had said that you could appeal. So the court said, no, appeal is a creature of the law and act, not a regulation. So the original draft wanted to cure that. So, but of course, and then the welfare thing. So I just wanted to illustrate what was contained in the previous draft, and which was later on overtaken by the Supreme Court ruling. Now, among the good things, for example, also we had been struggling. I've had a long life in the army. For example, there's a law of Workers' Compensation Act. Like if you're working in a factory and the factory cuts your hand, then they would pay you. But this law had a last clause said, for the avoidance of doubt, this law is not applicable to the armed forces. So it left armed forces that you are on a voluntary assumption of risk. So now the current laws wants to provide a situation that even if you're in a voluntary assumption of risk, something should be done to cater for your welfare in that respect. I had a case where a captain, a granddaughter of a former president, which many people didn't know, President Nyamuchonjo. President Nyamuchonjo was the president of the Republic of Uganda for 6 months, but people don't know. They were a shared presidential commission by a president, but they are the power of they are the ones signing bills. You know, a law does not become a law until assented. Today, we are the ones assenting, and they are the ones driving court of arms. So, the granddaughter of President Nyamuchonjo was a pilot, and she crashed, and the family came running that they wanted compensation. I told them, there's no law, my dear. So now, the current legal proposal seeks to address that, which is progressive. Now, I also want to note that the Supreme Court indeed says the ordinary court has power to try all matters. Take, for example, if in Umbuya, Sergeant Tumwesije shoots a wife, okay, and kills, it's perfectly not right that the matter is reported to General Police, and General Police goes to the scene of crime, and Corporal Tumwesije is tried in ordinary courts. Now, some people would think that, oh, it has happened in the barracks, he's a soldier, and he has used a gun, and then do that way. But this is just to say the High Court or the ordinary courts has all powers. So it can do that. Now, the exceptional situation that is being given, therefore, is a matter that is on the table. The Minister of Defense, or UPDF in that case, the drafts passed on the Minister of Defense, seems to think that indeed the Supreme Court provides for exceptions. And maybe this is the court is also arising from the general rule in law that to every general rule there's an exception. That is a big belief in the jurisprudence. For example, hearsay. You don't go to court and say, I heard. You must have seen. However, the exceptional situations of hearsay. For example, if somebody was in the other room and you heard the person cry, which you are killing me, you can go to court and say, I heard. Those are the few exceptions. So, now, to what extent do we demonstrate as a country the exceptional situation to fit this is now a matter before our General Assembly, National Assembly. Remember, we are 45 million people or thereabout, and we can't fit in an assembly, whether in Kololo or Nambole. So we therefore hope that our members who represent us in that assembly of Uganda will use due diligence. Now, this moves me to the Movement Caucus. The Movement Caucus is an organ of the party, just like you have Youth League or Disability League or whichever. And that's why, as a director, I sit in that caucus. Ideally, the object of the bill, as government seeks to put it, will be put to the caucus. When the caucus receives the object of the bill and what mischief government intends to cure, because a law is put in place to cure a mischief in most cases, because things with society feels this, and when society feels it, and society through the state feels it must give a remedy. Therefore, in the Movement Caucus, the government will seek to explain the object of this bill. But that would then leave it to the individual members of parliament to take their thinking on it. Ideally, somebody would think that a movement position is taken. But on a broad issue like this, government will explain its position, and therefore our legislators will do their role.
Major, but we thought actually this bill came from the NRM caucus. The caucus sat like twice or three times discussing the ruling of the Supreme Court. And then after we got a briefing from the caucus chairperson that they had agreed to actually amend the UPDF Act and explained exactly what they were going to do and what would be contained in the bill.
No,
maybe someone in the caucus is now to galvanize the troops in the House to push the bill through.
No, what was then agreed in caucus was a broad position to support a bill, because it could be lost at birth that don't. Now, Nicholas, I think it has provisions of about 80 or something sections, about 80. So you can know that a caucus cannot sit and discuss 80 sections in a law.
All right.
So what was done then was a broad consensus that we have it. Now, about the further discussion in caucus, it can be, for example, in a consensus may be developed, for example, hearing the reflections after tabling. A consensus may be developed to say, oh, colleagues, we have presented this and we have seen this. We therefore want to draw your attention to specific clauses 1, 2, 3. Could be either in case of strengthening or even a withdrawal.
All right.
So we don't need to preempting what will be coming out.
All right.
Now, just one last thing.
Yes, please.
I hope in our National Assembly of the 45 million people represented by the MPs, there will also be ingenious enough to think about what the court had provided us in the case of no other alternative, for use of better words. The courts could create a high court division specifically handling military affairs. If the feared mischief was speeding up justice. For example, you have the commercial division, you have the family division, you have the international crime division. Some thinking was that if the court feels that it's for discipline and other things, matters should be speeded up. So there is still that option, that school of thinking of saying, why not create, but within the bigger judicial system. So you create a division of handling military matters, justice. So we are in the right forum before the National Assembly, the 45 million represented by this. And discussions are ongoing.
All right.
And part of it is what we are doing now.
Okay.
This is part of the discourse.
All right. Thank you so much.